Hey friends, it's Ryan Frank, joined by Jim Wideman.
Hey,
Good morning,
everybody.
Jim.
Good morning, Ryan.
How are you? Man, talking to you twice in the same week.
And, really, if we count tomorrow, it's going to be three times.
3 times in the same week. This is a
Oh,
crazy week. I'm flying in some high skies this week.
we are hanging out and living large, and it's good. I have one call. We already had coffee on Monday. Bless you.
Thank you.
So my
Thank you.
question is, are you drinking coffee today?
Come on. Oh yeah. Who do you think you're from? Lucy's Car Wash and Drive-Through.
That's what I'm talking about.
What's yours from? Moonshine something? Is that what it says?
No, it's
Oh,
summer
Summer Moon.
moon
Okay.
in
All right.
Texas, but
That's
it's
how rumors get started. I thought it
it's
said moonshine.
yeah, well, I do have a moonshine story, but we'll save it for another time.
Okay. Well, this week, hey, welcome everybody to the Daily Coffee Chat. If you have a question, text it please to 833-792-6372. Thank you for tuning in, Facebook. Those of you listening today on the podcast or catching this on YouTube, thank you. This week, earlier in the week, Beth and I were in Nashville. We had the opportunity to, part of our trip was to hang out with Jim Wideman and Yancey, had some coffee at a cool little coffee shop. I thought I was in there for an oil change. They've taken a
Yeah.
mechanic shop and turned it into a coffee shop. Really cool. And then the best part of the morning, after seeing Yancey, of course, best part of the morning, go and pull. Jim said, follow me. I followed behind him in his vehicle, and we pull up to this big building that looks like Pottery Barn and a Restoration Hardware. It had a really cool feel and looked nothing like a church. Said the Belonging Co. Jim, you took me to your church. Man, that was a
I
treat.
took you, and we had the best time. And if you like black and white stuff, it is Mecca. It
It really
pretty
is.
cool. Yeah, so we've been really excited, and most of about 85% of our church is under 35 or under 40, and so you got to know the audience that you minister to, and we kind of, it looks like Restoration Hardware and the Apple Store had a baby.
It does. Beth and I were just so amazed and impressed, and the people that we met were so friendly. I sent in my application, Jim. I've not heard anything back on that job yet. So,
well, the bad thing for people looking for a job is we only hire from within, and even me, I just went to church there and was volunteering, and the next thing I knew, I was on staff, and
that's neat.
So it's been kind of fun.
It's been fun. One thing, and Jim's going to be back with us tomorrow. This is a double hitter.
2 day.
2. Jim gave me 2 for the price of 1 package, and I had to take him up on it. So one thing, Jim, we met for coffee, Beth and I, Jim and Yancey, and I bet we hadn't sat down for 60 seconds. And Jim, you started to ask me questions.
Yeah.
You're always asking questions. So when we talked about what are we going to talk about Thursday, I said, let's talk about asking questions, because anybody that's good at asking questions, and I have to have a feeling it's not just because you don't know the answers, but there's more to it than that. It's Jim Wideman. Jim, you love to ask questions.
It's my favorite way to learn, and I've never met a question I didn't like. And the reason why is because questions make you think, they make you evaluate, and they help you grow. And I've just found over the years that a growing faith is a questioning faith. And some people confuse asking questions and doubt and unbelief. They're two totally different things. But to me,
look at the life of Jesus. Jesus taught questions.
Well, and in Matthew, I love that Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 to 18. When Jesus came to the region Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? So he just started a general discussion, okay? And then all of a sudden, he brought it on home. They started saying, some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But what about you, he asked? Who do you say that I am? So, when we look at the life and the ministry of Jesus, he used questions to teach or make a point. He used questions to locate people spiritually. One of my favorite questions when I'm talking to people, especially if it's in a counseling setting, I like to say, has there ever been a time that you've loved Jesus more than you do right now? Maybe you want to rephrase that and say, have you ever been closer in your relationship with the Lord to him than you are right now?
Yeah.
And then that just opens up, well, what happened? Da, 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 da. Tell me this. And
now, Jim, you've been a pastor now since, my
45
word.
years. 45 years.
45 years. You were really a children's pastor before there were children's pastors. You were
I started as a youth pastor because if you ever did drugs in the 70s and you got saved, they always ask you if you did drugs. And if you did, they wanted to know your testimony. And if they really believed you got saved, they'd put you in the youth group. You just, don't pass go, don't collect $200, just go to the youth group.
Yeah.
And, my pastor came and said, grab your guitar, get your Bible, go to children's church and don't come out. That's been a long time. And
so here's my point, Jim, is you've been in ministry all these years. God has gifted you with the ability to think like a leader. You've written all these leadership books. You speak on stages all over the place. Yet you ask questions. Why do you think so many of us as pastors and leaders, we resist asking questions?
Well, I just think that so many times we don't continue to be a learner. And I don't care how many kids, I hate the only question I really hate is when people say, how many people are you running? Because they use that as a measuring stick. And I learned from people that have 5 kids in their ministry.
That's right.
And to me, you never arrive. You're always learning if you want to. And Ryan, I want to.
You want to.
Every time I'm around younger people, I always say, what are 5 apps that ought to be installed on my phone? What are, and that's one of the reasons younger people will still hang out with me. And that's
you're really interested and you're asking good questions.
Well, I just want to know. My biggest fear in life is to wake up one day and just be out of the picture. Nobody wants to talk to you. You don't have anything to offer. And I just want to stay relevant. I want to understand this world and how to do ministry at this time rather than just tell stories about life before copiers and computers.
Exactly.
Again, Jesus used questions to get people to think or to evaluate. And I want to be constantly evaluating my thinking. We've talked about this before. Last time I saw you reminded me we were talking about my garden.
Yeah, we were.
You can't rely on yesterday's fruit. You can't rely on fruit from another season. Maybe you had a good run at it. But again, if it's frozen or canned, it's fruit from another season. And fresh fruit from this season is always better. And so I use questions to help do that because questions, Jesus used questions to produce and encourage change. And so to me, anytime you're with a leader, you ought to learn from them. And I have to watch my attitude because if I start asking questions and people avoid answering it, I tend to sign off.
Yeah, that's
because true. I really want to spend that time learning from what that individual, their life
Jim,
experience.
How do you? Well, I was going to say, I know at some point, I think it's your third point because you sent me a copy of your notes. You were going to talk about making sure you're in positions where you can learn and ask good questions. What's that look like today?
Well, real simple. If you're going to have coffee with another children's pastor in your town, which I do on a regular basis, prepare questions ahead of time that you want to know. Also, I have, back when we're able to have live events again,
Mm-hmm.
and even if we hadn't, look at the rundown of people that are speaking at MegaCon and make a list of the people that you would just love to have 15 minutes with, and reach out to them. I've always had a conference within a conference, and where I use my breakfast, lunch, and supper to meet with folks, to ask them questions. I book.
And Jim, haven't you found, you might think that, well, there's no way that that person would ever give me 15 minutes. Don't say no for people. I found a lot of times people will say yes if you'll just ask.
It's crazy. I learned this. There was one time I was calling this guy in my church that happened to be one of my volunteers. Yep. He was the CEO of 6 different businesses that he ran. One of them was Honor Books, and he was a publisher, and he even bought a putt-putt one time. I called one day and said, hey, I talked to his assistant, said, I want to ask him some questions. And she said, oh, I'm sorry, he doesn't take phone calls. I said, forget what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Now I want to book a phone appointment to find out about phone appointments.
Yeah.
And so I did. And he used to on Sundays, he would have me, if I'd come work the concession stand with him at his putt-putt, he'd let me just ask questions.
Really?
And, even when I do lunches with people, I eat before I go to lunch, and I just sit there and ask them questions, and I buy their lunch, and I try to make that time. I had a lady, and I don't know if I've ever met her, but she emailed me the other day and just said, hey, I've been a children's pastor for 6 months. How do you deal? I'm writing a policy manual. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with this? And I gave her, she sent me one question. She didn't send me 25.
That's it.
She's not going to do it on a regular basis. But if she does, she's not going to do it 7 times in 1 month. But if she just emails me once a month or every other month, one question, I'm going to answer a question.
There's a good chance you're going to answer.
Yeah, I always answer. What a radical concept. I still check my email. And nobody does it for me. And if it's a simple question, sometimes though, the answer is read this book. If I wrote 248 pages on the subject, I'm not going to rewrite the book on your email. And so the key is, if I can tell them, hey, I know Ryan taught on this at MegaCon. There's a book on this, and it's not just my stuff I recommend.
I find a lot of times, Jim, I have a somewhat similar experience where I'll get emails from people with questions, and sometimes I'm able to help quick. A lot of times, though, I'll just encourage people, hey, go ask this question in the I Love Kidmin Facebook group. Or if you spend a few minutes and do a little search in I Love Kidmin, you're going to find some great conversations happening there in the I Love Kidmin.
And that's the key. Do a search.
Do a search.
If I see one, listen, I think we ought to charge a fine if the next person that posts, what Kidmin book should I read?
That's it. Or does anybody have a policy manual I can look at?
We should send them a bill for $250. And
because with a simple search,
it's already there.
You're going to find
it. And here's a better question: rather than what books do I read, give me one point from your favorite book that changed my life, that changed your life, or I'm a Batman fan, so everybody knows that on the utility belt, there's, Batman didn't use the shark spray on a regular basis, only in the 60s, but he used the Batarang. And so if you had a utility belt in kid ministry, what's your Batarang?
Boy, that's good.
And where did you get that? Where did you learn about it? And, for me, it's time management. And I'd tell people, read Beat the Clock. And, it's one of those things that, ask things to learn how and why, ask things to understand more, ask things that promote thought, ask questions to grow, to locate people. Again, there's nothing wrong with clarification questions.
No, and I also think, Jim, don't you, that a lot of times, I know different personalities are different, but I feel like we can have a mindset that I'm the pastor, I'm a leader. I don't want to look weak. I don't want my pastor to not think I've got this all together. I've got to be the problem solver. And we resist asking questions because we're going to look weak, or what if I get a bad answer? I don't think it makes you weak at all. Do you?
No, not in the leader's eye. And that's one of the bad things about working with younger leaders. If they're afraid to ask you questions in situations that would make them look bad, set them up to meet with you alone, or to meet with you in a smaller group, just so that you can just go through some of those personality things. At the end of the conference, I'll ask anybody have any questions, but then there's 25 people that want to meet with me afterwards. So obviously they had questions, but they didn't want to look bad in front of other people.
That's
so,
right.
What I like to do is say, hey, let's grab coffee tomorrow afternoon, and ask your questions there. Then it goes into a smaller group rather than the large workshop.
Jim, I'll never forget, I know we've talked about this in the past, but the first time you and I met was on a cruise ship.
Yep.
We both were invited to speak for Roger Fields on his Kidmin cruise, which I'd love to come back and do another Kidmin cruise sometime. That's another point. I remember you and I met for the first time, and you said, Ryan, after we're all done tonight, you want to get together? And I remember what you said. You said, because I want to ask you some questions. Remember that? And you had some questions ready that you wanted to ask
me.
You
had been on my radar just as a young guy, and I told you this, and you reminded me of me when I was younger. And I saw that zeal, I saw that love to help people, and I just wanted to get to know you as well as I wanted to learn from you. And,
that's right.
It was one of those things that the first leadership cruise I went on, one night, the late and wonderful Craig Jutilla and myself, and then also Sue Miller, we were all on that cruise ship. So we had dinner together.
That's cool.
And we, chit-chatted and ate dinner. And then when it was all over, we all pulled out our list and began to ask each other questions. And instantly there was a roll behind us of leaders who just came. There was some people that ordered another cheesecake. It's cruise. And just to
sit there and listen to you guys ask each other questions.
Yeah. And some people valued cheesecake more than learning. But those that were sitting around, we started seeing them writing notes because, here was Sue talking about loving everybody and just caring for people. And Craig was just throwing out vision. And I was talking about policies and procedures and how do you get a check and how do you reserve a room. And I was, we were just being ourselves to each other. That was one of the great takeaways that, for years, one of the things when we'd have a guest speaker at our church, I was so thankful my pastor would let me just be a fly on the wall and listen to those conversations. And the questions that you learn from don't have to even be your questions. It can be questions others are asking of other people. And so when I'm in a seminar, even if I don't have a question, I go up and hang out with the people asking questions so I can take advantage of the speaker's answer to other people's questions.
Love it. Jim, in our last 5 minutes, I'd love to hear from you. What are some of your favorite questions? Because I know you've gotten asked a lot of questions. You ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorites?
Number one, what's God been saying to you? And if nothing,
Yeah.
then I want to know why. What have you been learning about yourself? What is the Lord showing you about your marriage? What are you learning about? I like to know what other people are learning and what they're thinking. If I get with authors, what are you writing about right now? Again, what do you need to not do? I'd rather know what's on somebody's not to-do list than on their to-do list.
And that's good.
What have you stopped doing that you probably need to continue to do, go back to? What systems have to be strengthened or established in your ministry? Most people won't appeal with their question, but it's really a process that they need to learn. How does your thinking need to change? Who are you mentoring? Everybody is looking for a mentor, but who are you mentoring? I want to know those things. Who's mentoring you? What have you stopped doing that you need to start again? I love books. I really do. But rather than keep buying new books, if you're an underliner, go back to the books you've already read and see what you underlined and ask yourself, why have I not applied this in my life?
Yep.
And there's certain books I reread every year. There's others I read, every 2 years or so. But that's one of those things that you need to do. And the most important question that I think that anybody could ask is, how are you spending your time? And, these are questions that, to me, I ask myself that every day. Every night before I go to bed, I look at my day and I ask, what do I need to do different tomorrow? Yep. Where did I waste time? How can I fix that? And, it's just a good thing to, be a good answer of questions.
Friends, some of my greatest treasures on my shelf are my Jim Wideman books. Jim, your website's jimwideman.com. If someone is watching or listening today that's never owned a Jim Wideman book, of course, if you can go in and buy one of each, you will never regret it. But if there's one that you would say to someone who's never read a Jim Wideman book, which one should they start with?
Well, if they want to grow their ministry, do Stretch. If they want to be better themselves, read Beat the Clock.
Stretch, I agree. Both great books. Stretch, Beat the Clock. I think your books are still on jimwideman.com, right? You can buy
everything. And that's how to get in touch with me too.
Okay. All right.
Everything's on jimwideman.com. And so it's kind of fun. And it's got a new look. It's the hipper, younger website.
Nice. Did you change it up?
Yeah, man. I let a 25-year-old change some things.
I like it.
So it's fun.
Now tomorrow, tease us up. We're going to talk about saying no to the word yes. No, wait.
Well, we're talking about saying yes to the word no. Yes to the word no. And we're going to talk about that. That's probably the biggest thing over the years that I've had to watch is learning how to say no to things and in the right way. And saying yes to the right things will help you to say no to wrong things. And so we're going to talk about that tomorrow. And it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Friends, it's Jim Wideman. Go check out jimwideman.com. Jim's going to be back with me tomorrow at the same time, same place.
Yeah. With coffee.
With coffee. Summer moon.
Coffee chat.
Ladies and gentlemen, go check out jimwideman.com. Jim, thank you for sharing today. Podcast.
Thanks, man. Love you.
Love you too. Everyone who's watching on.
Thankful for your friendship.
Hey, you too. Friends, be back tomorrow. We will see you. More Jim Wideman. Thanks again, guys.